Hey, Talking Cars fans, we really love making Talking Cars each week, but we want to make sure you enjoy it as much as we do. That's why we've created a survey to find out what you like best about the show, what you want more of, and what we can improve on. Go to cr.org/TalkingCarsSurvey and let us know how we can make the podcast better. We really want to be your favorite automotive podcast, and your responses can help make that happen. Thank you for your help and enjoy the show. We talk about our final test results of the 2020 Mercedes-Benz GLS450, concerns about LED headlights and winter weather, and the benefits of a second row bench versus captain's chairs. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, and welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Emily Thomas.
I'm Mike Quincy.
So today we're going to jump right in with results from the track. We got a car that has a lot going on because it's the 2020 Mercedes GLS450 that we've now completed testing on. Just to kind of give a quick summary, this is a large SUV, all-wheel drive, 3-liter turbo in our tested version, 362 horsepower, 9-speed automatic. Sticker priced for us $89,030.
I was going to say, when you're talking about how large it is, it's a large check
car,
we wrote.
Large price. A lot going on. We did have quite a few options on this car. Base price was $75,200, so there's a lot that we added to it. So I'm going to go to you, Mike. Impressions, final results of the GLS.
Well, actually, what's interesting is I was assigned to buy this vehicle.
Oh, so you had that experience.
So there's a number of our colleagues that were anxiously awaiting this $89,000 SUV, big Mercedes, three-pointed star in the front and everything. Yeah. Listen, it's very quiet. It's got a nice ride. It kind of lives up to those Mercedes stereotypes that you think a vehicle of this pedigree would have. It did pretty well in our testing overall. Fuel economy wasn't bad for the size.
Yep.
But for me, it doesn't really work for my life. Mm-hmm. It's just too big. It's a real challenge to park. And for me, really, the deal breaker is the controls. It just seems like Mercedes, with all of their R&D and all their experience making cars, it's almost like they're going out of their way to make controls as complicated as possible. I mean, listen, when you get out of a Kia or a Hyundai, and it takes about 30 seconds to figure everything out. Right. Why does it have to be this complicated? But it is.
I wonder sometimes if they have to, when you're spending $89,000, if it's the need to make it feel like you've got something different. Maybe not better, to your point.
Well, right, but maybe that's the whole idea of when you're buying a vehicle this expensive, is you need to impress people.
Yeah, that's I guess what I'm saying.
And they totally do impress on like the convenience and the additional features. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm with you in terms of this would not be the car that I chose for my family. One, the sticker price alone would deter me. But like, I loved the convenience features. Like, I love that there are heated armrests and a heated seat.
Little amenities.
And I discovered the massage feature, and that was fabulous.
We paid for that. Yeah.
Yes, right. Exactly. But like, I really like the convenience features about it, but you can have those things without making them hard to find.
Right.
When my husband drove the car, he was like, "Where's that seat warmer you were talking about?" I'm like, "It's on the door." He's like, "On my door?" And it took him a solid few minutes to find it. Then he wanted the steering wheel warmer, and he's like, "I don't see the button. You told me it's here." And I was like, "Well, it's like kind of behind the steering wheel, but don't touch the steering wheel adjuster. It's the other button."
Right.
And he adjusted his steering wheel before he got to the steering wheel warmer. So like, there are aspects of it's like, you made all these really great fun things available, but you didn't make it in a way that's like even sort of safe for me to find while I'm driving.
Sure, that goes all whole thing with driver distraction, and it's not necessarily the right thing to do, but we all are adjusting the car while we're driving, whether it's the climate system, the radio, or something.
Right. Things change over the course of a ride. I mean, if I was in a longer ride and I wanted to be able to like adjust the way that, it was supporting my back, I'm still not really sure where that is on the screen. Like I couldn't find the buttons.
Did you guys experience, so it had this voice control that you say, it's very much like Alexa or, Siri, "Hey, Mercedes." And she says, "How may I help you?" It got funny because when we were in it, we said Mercedes, just the word Mercedes, every time prompted, "How may I help you?" But I think it worked very well for getting through some of that.
Right.
Because you could say, "Tune the radio to," or whatever your action you wanted for a lot of that. So.
And to be fair, when you live with a car day in and day out, and we don't necessarily do that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're always getting in and out of different cars. You will learn these things.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about in our road tests, we often say that an infotainment system or the controls have a learning curve.
Right.
Some are steeper than others. This is a pretty steep one.
Yeah. So I had kind of an extended experience with this car. I was taking a trip to see my daughter ride. I think I've said she's an equestrian, riding north. So we were on highway and then literally the back roads of Vermont, New Hampshire. And I had my parents. So I had my 83-year-old mother and my 85-year-old father, who was still 6'3".
And they said, "Jen is doing well."
Yes. She's sitting in the back for an entire weekend of this equestrian adventure. I have to tell you, I was thoroughly impressed with the big stuff. The powertrain, like you say, the ride. I've always said Mercedes gets ride. They get it. The ride control, the acceleration, the powertrain. It comes with a 4-liter V8. You do not need it. And my parents, who were in the second row and first row, access, comfort, the seats. I literally, not taking away anything that you guys have said. There were challenges. I used "Hey, Mercedes" a lot. But from highway to winding back roads, I didn't feel a ton of body roll in this giant car. I got out of that car after a weekend and said, I truly felt like if I had $89,000 to spend on a car, I would feel like I got my money's worth.
See, that's an interesting point.
For that vehicle,
Because
I would be impressed.
Because I spent last weekend driving our Cadillac XT6.
Yep.
And I thought, I much prefer this over the Mercedes. If I had the $89,000, I would still get the XT6. And I get this, I'd save $27,000. Now, the Mercedes is nice. Is it $27,000 nicer?
The
I'm not
XT6,
sure.
I had it the weekend before you, Quinn. The XT6 does not massage my back.
Right. And again, it was so
heavy. That to me it's kind of nice. That isn't something that I'm looking to check off when I'm going to buy a car.
But I will say, like, for as large as the car was, it wasn't as unwieldy as I expected it to be.
Right.
Except for when I wanted to park. Every time I wanted to park, I felt like I was moving a behemoth. And like normally I'm the person, like the few times that I take the big pickups home or like, the really big 3-row SUVs, I will park on the far end of a parking lot as far away from humans and other vehicles as possible because I don't trust that I can actually get into the space.
Yep.
But nonetheless, like, aside from those factors about it, like, it is a lot of space. Like, you have to figure out that you really need that. But if you are going to have people that, like, especially adults in the back seat.
If you have adult passengers,
it was quite spacious for that.
Even the 6'3" dad was super comfortable. And again, we're talking road test score. Keep in mind, reliability, safety features will add. Reliability for Mercedes is not always a strong point. So absolutely, go to consumerreports.org. We have the whole package there on the Mercedes GLS. So like I say, it was a car that had a lot going on. So anyway, we're going to move now to viewer questions. As always, we love them. Keep them coming. TalkingCars@iCloud.com. The first question is from Andy. I bought a 2019 Mazda CX-5 last year, which comes standard with LED headlights. During an early wet snow we had here in Denver, I realized my headlights got completely covered in snow on the drive home. Is this because LED lights don't get as hot as traditional halogen bulbs? And is this a cause for concern? And Andy shared a great photo. We'll put it up there for those who are watching. You can see literally his whole front bumper is pretty much encased in snow. So being headlights, I'm going to kind of take this one. So the advantages of LED headlights, and they're, to Andy's point, becoming ever more popular on just baseline models, not always on upper trim necessarily, is that they're more efficient. And when I say more efficient, they don't draw as much energy because truly heat in terms of a lighting source is a waste. What they can't put out in light, like a halogen bulb, is wasted as heat. And there is no question that halogen light bulbs, which are the standard, going back in history, most cars still have halogen, generate more heat outwardly than LEDs. LEDs grab some heat, but it's more on the backside. They actually sometimes have to have a cooling fan where the electricity is entering the LED, but on the surface and to your light, housing, there's not as much heat. So what I would say to someone like Andy, yes, it's a real issue. I don't know if the conditions of that particular snowstorm, particularly wet, I think that can happen even with halogen sometimes. But yes, if you have LED headlights and you're in those type of conditions, you may have to be more conscious that they can get encased in ice. When you defrost even or cleaning off your car, they may not clear as readily.
Yeah, what's interesting is that, and you've often talked about this with tires, when there's a technology improvement,
right.
you often get something, but then you give something.
Right.
So with headlights, you're getting these great LEDs, but you're giving up this aspect of the older lights being able to melt some of the ice up front.
Right, and I want to caution that we don't necessarily say all LEDs are better. Mm-hmm. Some are, some aren't.
Oh, that's
They're
true.
definitely brighter and wider and whiter. They appear great. The stylists love them because the source is smaller. They can play with them more, but they're not always better in our tests, for sure.
And sometimes when they're optional, they cost more.
Yep.
And to your point, it's not always worth it to spend the extra money.
So certainly in Andy's case, if you're in an area where that kind of heavy wet snow is a frequent occurrence, you may want to opt for the halogen if it's available to get that extra heating and kind of clear those lenses.
And you have to also keep in mind, if that snow is covering your front bumper the way that it shows in his picture, that it's also probably going to impact the sensors that are there for the different, ADAS systems. And I know that we've experienced that here, that like we'll be driving different cars and we'll get the little warning that says like, oh, this particular sensor is not working as well because there's something that's hindering or the weather conditions or whatever. Yep. So definitely things to keep in mind, that it's not just about your lights, and, you have to be more diligent even in like cleaning off your car or perhaps having to, even pull over maybe to clean off if the storm is really bad.
For that case, he might have,
And we have a story on Consumer Reports online that talks about this. And one of the things that I thought was interesting in researching the answer to this question is that owners need to know where the sensors are located.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times you just think, well, they're up front, they're in the bumper or they're whatever. But there's also sensors in the rear body quarter panels for blind spot warning, which is not something that you think is going to get all caked up like the front of your car.
And may actually get more because it gets kicked up. Or cameras in the windshield, that you may not cover that section. So there's a lot. Great point. So moving on, the next question is from Jeff. Our family of 5 is looking for a 3-row CUV, crossover utility vehicle, with room for everyone in the first 2 rows and enough cargo space for vacations. I want the top level trim, but it seems every car makes me upgrade to captain's chairs instead of a bench seat. What's up with this? Could you please tell manufacturers that some people want all of the top features, but require a second row bench seat? Emily, thoughts for Jeff?
So I wonder, do you really require the second row to be a bench seat? Because in my experience of doing like the rear seat evaluation for the test vehicles, having a bench seat doesn't always mean that you have 3 full-size seating positions.
Comfortable.
Especially not necessarily comfortable seating positions. Usually, it was just like when we were growing up as kids, right? Like whoever got the center or the hump seat sort of got the short end of the stick. So, that center seating position is often more narrowly spaced. The belt anchors are more narrowly spaced, so they might be kind of cutting a little bit more into like your hips. Jeff hasn't really given a lot of details about what his family of 5 looks like. I can't really speak to whether or not he's trying to put in a bunch of car seats or he's got boosters or teenage age children or maybe even like an elderly person in the back that they're putting, like, you know, a parent or something. But I would say that, you know, sometimes, you know, I think the captain's chair has benefits that could be really useful for a family. You know, like you have more comfortable individual seats. You have that middle access to the third row.
Right.
And I know he wants the cargo space, but like, I think you could have a third row, right, that has that split.
Yeah.
So you could still use
Flexibility,
part
we talked
of the
about.
third row for seating, have the rest of it being used for some additional cargo space. And, you know, not knowing what his family of 5 looks like, I grew up in a family of 6, and I have 3 younger brothers who are very close in age, so they were all teenagers at the same time. And let's just say it would not have been an enjoyable ride for anyone if they were forced to sit in a bench seat together. We needed to separate them a little bit.
That was going to be my point, because I'm the father of 2 boys, and now they're older, they're 20 and 16. But when they were younger, it wasn't a bad thing for them to be physically separated from each other. There was just, you know, they couldn't reach each other.
There
when they were swinging.
he's touching me. I'm not touching you. He's touching me. So
I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Jeff, maybe your kids get along a little better.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. But I would say my advice to him truly would be, take your people with you to the dealership.
Yeah.
You know, like when you are trying to pick between these vehicles and you're testing them out, don't just go as the driver, take your whole family with you. If you have car seats, take your car seats with you. Install them in the vehicle that you're looking at, because you need to be able to figure out if the people that you're going to force to ride in the back, are they actually going to be comfortable with the configuration that you have in mind? You know, and I think that would be really important. Probably, I mean, your children will probably thank you.
Yes. And they're going to grow. That's the other thing.
What's
If they
interesting
are
about this question, and we get questions about, you know, SUVs and crossovers all the time, and quite often the best answer is a minivan.
Yes.
Sorry to say that, but you get a minivan and it solves a lot of these issues.
Yeah, we just took a trip for here. 6 adults. We were all traveling together, 6 colleagues from here. We took a minivan. That was the most comfortable for 6 adults. So,
And it had captain's chairs.
and it had captain chairs, and the well was great for cargo and luggage. It was really comfortable. The only thing, Jeff is absolutely right, that I added, I tried to configure Telluride, New Highlander. It does. When you get to those limited and platinum trims, the standard is captain's chairs. The only thought I had for Jeff is look very carefully at, say, the EX to the SX, for example, in the Telluride. Maybe the change isn't significant enough that you can't opt back for the EX and get your bench if that's ultimately where you end up. And you really want that. And you're right, about 10 cubic feet of extra cargo. In the 3-row version, I was comparing Sorrento to Telluride, Santa Fe to Palisade, you know, RAV4 to Highlander. It is some extra cargo volume. So you are absolutely right. Totally consider, again, I have adult kids. I would probably opt for the captain's chairs myself. So great input. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in Emily's family vehicle.
Oh, I don't think you would.
I was the youngest, though. I always had to sit in the hump.
Yeah, that's right. The boot. We called it the boot. Good Lord, we're getting old. So the final question is from Jean in Atlanta. Between the new 4-cylinder Toyota Camry and the new 4-cylinder 1.5-liter Honda Accord, which of these cars would you buy and why? I like the new Accord better, but I'm afraid the turbocharged engine will not last as long. Longevity of the powertrain is very important to me. Mike.
So I spoke to our very smart statisticians, Steve and Anita, and dig down deep into our data. And right now, we have no data to suggest that the Turbo 1.5 in the Accord is problematic.
Okay.
However, last year we ran a story about Honda reporting that they were extending their warranties on this 1.5 turbo. It might not be the same engine exactly, because manufacturers often have the same size engines, but they have slight differences. But Honda is extending the warranties on more than 1 million CRVs and Civics, because there was issues about gasoline could seep into the engine oil, and they were having problems with that.
You had a friend who had it, yeah.
So I suppose to play it safe, you would get a 4-cylinder Camry, which statistically speaking, is almost bulletproof according to Consumer Reports data. And we've had a lot of questions on Talking Cars about turbo engines in the past. And again, talking to Steve, he's like, the idea of turbos is a good one. It's a smaller engine. It produces good power, usually decent fuel economy. But you can't just generalize and say, well, all turbos are this or all turbos are that. Our data shows that many are turning out to be reliable. And generally, the issues with turbo engines don't necessarily have to do with the engines themselves, but the powertrain. And by that, I mean the 8, 9, 10-speed automatic transmissions are proving to be more troublesome than the actual engine itself. So the manufacturers with more experience with turbocharging, like Porsche, BMW, Audi, have better overall reliability for these turbo applications. And the manufacturers like Hyundai, Lincoln, Mini Cooper, not as much history, a few more problems.
Right, not as much experience. That's what I was going to say with the turbos, because it's a very common small displacement turbos as a balance for power and fuel economy.
And Consumer Reports is always,
we've talked a lot about it.
is continuously working on updating our reliability data, and we're putting out these surveys. We'll see what happens, but right now there's no red flags for any of the Accord engines.
Okay, except the previous two, which you say may or not be the same engine. So absolutely, 4-cylinder, small displacement turbos. So many are going, as you say, that way to balance power and fuel economy. Some do it better than others. In this case, you don't know other than the Honda history. So if you see Gene, you're walking down the street, what's your advice?
I would say I would go with the 4-cylinder Camry. Not only is that engine a proven, really good component, it's super fuel efficient. It did remarkably well in Consumer Reports fuel economy tests. The whole car is very solid. And actually much more enjoyable to drive than any Camry in the past. People say, oh, Camry, it's so boring. Try the new Camry before you just dismiss it out of hand as being a boring car. It actually is pretty entertaining.
Well, we used to say they were so different in the way they drove. The Camry has come closer to the way the Accord used to drive. So that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening, watching. Please send your questions, talkingcars@icloud.com. Any additional information on what we talked about, see the show notes, and we'll see you next time.